Hi, scholars. So, remember, yesterday we had our first math lesson. Show me silent excitement for that first math lesson. And we were learning about rainbows. About dogs? Not in math. We were learning about what exactly the same and what not exactly the same means when we're looking at two things. So remember, we had that example yesterday that we were looking at two big red circles. And those were exactly the same because they had three things that were the same. Who can remind your teacher what the three things are that you need for something to be exactly the same? What are the three things that you need for two things to be exactly the same? Ooh, right now I'm looking for scholars who are raising it straight vertical. Their hand is going all the way to the sky, and they are ready to tell your teacher either just one of the three things. That's okay if you just remember one, or you can tell them all three. So teachers, pause right now. You're looking for a scholar with the straightest vertical to tell you the things that we need for two things to be exactly the same. Okay, so we know that two things are exactly the same when they have the same size, the same shape, the same color. So two things are exactly the same when they have the same size, the same shape, the same color. So, and then we know that they're not exactly the same when they do not have the same size, shape, or color. So that example, when we were looking at that big red circle, and then with the blue smaller square, those were not exactly the same because they were not the same color. One was red and one was blue. They weren't the same size. It was a big red circle and a smaller blue square. And they're not the same shape. One was a circle and one was a square. So we know that they are not exactly the same. Now, I want you to think back to yesterday. Remember, you guys were helping Miss Swede sort her laundry. Now, she was really having some trouble making sure that the socks were matched up so that they were exactly the same. Remember, we were looking at socks that were either exactly the same or not exactly the same. And believe it or not, Miss Swede has even more socks that she needs help sorting with. So let's get started on this because we know it can get a little confusing. So we are looking to see if the pairs of socks that Miss Weed has put together are exactly the same or not exactly the same. So let's look at this first pair. Ooh, those are some fun princess socks. Those are some of my favorite ones that I wear. But does that match with the other sock? Are they the same color, the same size, or the same shape? Ooh, I know that you can tell me if they are exactly the same or not exactly the same if I see your face in the camera or on my screen. And you're tracking, remember tracking, our eyes are on the screen. We're looking to see if they are exactly the same or not exactly the same. So who can tell me is it exactly the same or not exactly the same? Teachers, you can pause and call on a scholar who has the straightest vertical and is tracking the screen and ask if they're exactly the same or not exactly the same. If you said not exactly the same, you got it, because they are not the same shape. The princess sock is definitely a little bit smaller and doesn't go up quite as high, so it's not the same shape. Like I said, it's smaller, so it's not the same size. And they're not the same color because one has princesses on it and the other does not. It's just kind of a diamond pattern. So we know that they're not exactly the same. Oop, so we went a little too fast. Now, who can tell me, are these exactly the same or not exactly the same? They're exactly the same because they are both high socks, they're both blue, and they're also the same shape. They both go up to your knees or calves or whatever. So they have those three things that we know tell us if they're exactly the same, with the same size, the same shape, and the same color. So again, teachers, I am going to go through the slides. You can pause on each slide so that we can call on super sticky scholars that are ready to see, to tell you if the socks are exactly the same or not exactly the same. Scholars, I know you are going to help me figure out how to get my socks in order. So I am so excited to see the hard work you do when looking at these socks. And remember, we're looking for those three things. We're looking for those three things: for the same size, the same shape, and the same color, in order to know if they are exactly the same or not exactly the same. All right. All right. So, scholars, thank you so much for helping me out with that work, because that would have taken Miss Sweet a while to do all by herself. So I know that now we are masters of knowing when things are exactly the same or not exactly the same. And we know that by talking about those three things, that they're the same size, the same shape, and the same color. Okay, scholars, we are going to end today with another cheer, because now I know that we are flawless at being able to match things by exactly the same and not exactly the same. And I'm going to ask us to do the Beyonce cheer. So if you don't know this already, it goes, Beyonce's up. I woke up like this. I woke up like this, flawless. All right, so now that you've seen it, you're gonna do it with me. So remember, I want you super quick. Beyonce's up. 1, 2. I woke up like this. I woke up like this. Flawless. All right, scholars, I'll see you tomorrow for another math lesson.